Welcome back to Equal Time Soccer. We are here to break down the beginnings of the summer league season here in the upper Northwest. We have UPSL, WPSL, and USLW League kicking off. I am joined by Equal Time founder Matt Pravratsky. The intros to the last two shows, I realized I was way too low key. And so I'm into it now, Matt. But I'm joined, like I said, by the founder of Equal Time. I did realize it wasn't enough. And today we're going to talk about some recent results. We're going to talk about games to watch and also do a little bit of basic analysis on some of the rostered cues from some local teams and just what we're seeing in the early race. But yeah, welcome, Matt. We're into the summer league.
It's wild. I mean, when especially leagues like the UPSL aren't as don't wait as long to get into it, and so
Mm-hmm.
when you pull up standings, you're like, "Oh my God, we've been missing some of these games, or I've been missing some of these games," and so
They're playing.
it's great to see. It's great. There's so many leagues, so many teams. It is almost literally impossible to track all of it, but
Mm-hmm.
that's what makes it worth attempting.
Yeah, we love the growth of the game. So today let's do a little UPSL coverage. So, like we said last week when we talked to, or the week before maybe when we talked to Bridget McDowell, a lot of consistency in the teams in the UPSL, split into the division names we have a lot of fun with because it is funny. Midwest West North and Midwest West South. There is no Midwest East, and there never will be as
No.
far as we're concerned. But big results. I mean, like we saw last year, there's a lot of competitiveness, but also definitely levels to this division, perhaps as much as any of the summer leagues we follow, where there's a couple teams who um, have wonderful missions, but also through that are a bit vulnerable to bigger teams with more kind of established talent. So we saw a few trends like the Karen Football Association taking some lumps early, as new teams do in this league. So Superior City laying a big football type scoreline on them, NOSC Blast as well. But it's early. So, that's a trend. We certainly saw some other teams like Vlora struggled a bit early, and knowing from our connections, I know they had some injuries and a bit of a younger roster. But Matt, looking at kind of those early results, also going to take some time for Granite City, by the way.
Yeah.
But what are your interpretation of that? I mean, obviously, you don't know early if teams are really all put together yet. But we don't necessarily like seeing those big score lines. What are your interpretations of some of those early, results for UPSL in the Midwest West North?
Yeah, I think if we want to sort of same page ourselves to remind folks what summer leagues are versus other things we cover, the classic thing we
Mm,
always talk about is that the college systems and the college teams and the college schedules tend to have sort of more predictive results because they're systems that exist over time. Players are there for
mm,
multiple years. They have these training camps. It's much more rigid, much more structured. The summer, folks come in, they don't always have that much time to train, and particularly early in the season, as you mentioned, either injuries or player availability play an even bigger role. So I think when you click in and see some of these games, you go in and you see some individual star talent has an even greater impact on these entire score lines. You go in and you see
mm,
a whole host of NSIC, like D2 hot shots, coming in and just absolutely crushing in these games. You have Molly
mm.
Bergstrand, who's going to come in to BSU. She was Miss Minnesota Soccer, broke all the scoring records in coming out of the St. Cloud area.
Yeah.
She's going to be at BSU. She's crushing it for NOSC. You got Caitlin Beavers is actually transferring into UMD. She's crushing it for the Twin Stars. You got Agatha Nemene. By the way, we are going to have Agatha on with Mimi Iden. I think they both are coming back from Liberian national team camp.
Mm.
That is unbelievable. She plays starred for Campbellsville. If hardcore equal time nerds remember, I believe that's where Sangbin Cha played. I,
Oh,
I could be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'll
But
look it up.
Campbellsville has been mentioned on this show before for sure. And also Sophia Hazi, oh my God, from Concordia. She is absolutely annihilating it for Granite City. Granite City has been crushing. Also, shout out to UWO Claire commit Isabel Feligy. I think she's 18 and she's been crushing it for Granite City.
Hmm.
But so I think a lot of the individual talent shines through in the summer a little bit more than college. And I think early in the summer, it shines through even more. So I think you're starting to see those lopsided score lines. And then for the score lines where you don't see that big lopsided score, I think it is worth tracking sort of which of these quote unquote star players left those squads since last year.
Yeah, I mean, we see it level out a bit, I think, as it goes on once people get, into rhythm, but it is like you said, I mean, we see Northern Sun standouts, certainly the D2 standouts. It's nice to see the mix of the other talent and certainly high schoolers. And then, you have the certain teams that we always love to see some of the non-traditional players just in terms of maybe they're 28, maybe they're 30, maybe they're just playing in an adult league.
Yeah.
And that's a cool path as well. So that's the mix we get. And it's a lot of fun. In the Midwest, West, South, similarly, you're seeing some teams stand out. And this is a team I need to dig into more in terms of Granite City. They're putting goals up. So they
Yeah.
beat Skills, which you might expect. Skills, another team that's like a growing, a less established club in terms of like this level of the game. Granite City also beat Lakeville SC. I don't know the level at which that team is. We'll see today when we go to Aurora 2. But so Granite City putting up goals, 8 on Skills, 6 on Lakeville, 4 on Blackhawks. And so if you go, shout out to the UPSL website, they do have a bit of stats. At least they have goal leaders. And so there's a ton from our divisions because there are a bunch of those big results. But yeah, it is to see those players coming from the local colleges is fun. And we're really looking forward to also talking to, seeing the teams that have their different strategies. Like Superior City's a team that is extremely local. Perhaps it probably is, maybe the most local team in terms of their region of any of the teams we cover.
Mankato on their heels. Mankato on their
But
heels.
they have a couple internationals though. Like
Right.
there's like a 30-mile radius and you can't get in. It's like Atletico Bilbao for people who follow the men's game. But they have more and more UMD talent, which is cool to see, including, Anna Tobias. She put up a 5-er in one of those big games. She scores a lot. Talk about those teams. You said a bit about NSIC, but we said, Mankato United, obviously their core crop always from Minnesota State. Just talk about the D2 role in Northern Sun Conference in this conference and in this league and others, I should say,
Yeah.
because it's a through line.
I just think the UPSL, we've said it so many times, the UPSL has probably the most interesting player mix of any of the summer leagues. And in the very best way, it just is more accessible. You see D3 kids, you see kids coming out of the ethnic leagues, you see D2s, you see some D1s. I mean, Ava Great is still, out of SDSU is crushing it for Aurora 2. You see folks from all these player pathways, but for us who love to highlight, the NSIC, the D2s, it's just so rad to see these players go out there and just carve it up. I mean, Sophia Hazy, I went to one of Concordia's spring games earlier this year, and I was just taking note of which players really seemed to stand out, and then making myself feel like an idiot. I go check, the players on the list, and I'm like, yeah, no, duh, you idiot. You thought all of their best players were good. Good for you. Great talent ID. But Sophia Hazy just carves it up. She's number 17 for the Golden Bears. She's doing so great
Mm-hmm.
for Granite City. But
Yeah.
all of these teams have a really interesting player mix. We're still seeing, as you said, some of the older players there, but I just think we've always said more opportunity for these players is good. As long as these situations are positive and players feel like they're getting what they want, we're always going to be in favor of more opportunity. So
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's cool to see these players get a chance to be showcased. I will also shout out, I believe I was watching, well, we'll get to the WPSL side, so I'll hold it. But there's a new team in the running for best quality broadcast, and we
Mm-hmm.
always mention Mankato, we always mention
Yeah.
Sioux Falls, we even shout out Rochester.
Mm.
This team is nipping at their heels, dude. Someone did a great job. We'll save it for later, but uh,
Ooh.
yeah.
The scoop everyone's gonna stay tuned for. I love this.
It's on the WPSL side. We can stay
With
focused on the
It
UPSL.
waits professional. We love it. A quick hit. I mean, it's early, like we said, but and we haven't seen. We're gonna probably get a little bit of Aurora 2 experience tonight as they
Mm-hmm.
play Lakeville SC. But talk about first couple results a lot closer. I mean, they and NOSC last year rolled in this conference in terms of goal differential, not losing. There were teams that were close, but it was a clear differential. I don't, I've only glanced through the Aurora 2 roster. I haven't like detailed look. Do you
Yep.
get a sense that, maybe it's younger, or that, I mean, it's hyper local, which we love. Aurora 1 more and more has become, people from out of
Yep.
state
Yep.
as compared to Minnesotans. So we love seeing the localness of it. But do you think it's maybe, is it a talent drop, or it's just early? Do you get any sense of that?
I think it's probably a mix of both. I do think for folks who followed the squad last year, there are at least a handful of pretty big time impact players that are not on this year's squad. So
Mm-hmm.
Ali Primerano, Kira Laney, Bayless Flynn, Mackenzie Rath, Mandy Elton. Like
Yeah.
these are some not just good players, but sort of best in the
Who
league
moved up?
players.
Ava, didn't someone else move up?
Ava Westland
Ava
moved to
Westland.
Aurora 1, and so that's
Yeah.
another big loss. So
Yeah.
I think there are still a lot of really cool players on this squad. Actually, a lot of MIACs, a lot of D3 studs on there.
Yeah.
Like folks from St. Kate's, which has been a D3 power, folks from Augsburg and things like that. And you still have plenty of really cool D2s and D1s on there too. But I do think there's an adjustment. I do think Aurora 2 will still be competitive. I do think these score lines are so obvious that they do kind of tell you the stratification early on. I mean, you don't get
Mm-hmm.
multiple 5-0, 10-0 score lines and have it be fluky like after you get to 2 or 3 games like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I do think you're going to see the NOSCs at the top, the Granite Cities at the top, but it might mean the whole rest of the table is really, really competitive. Twin Stars and TFE, they draw. You see a draw
Mm-hmm.
between St. Croix and Lakeville City. You see close scores between St. Croix and Minnesota Aurora 2. So I
Mm-hmm.
just think it's going to be interesting. Superior City had that big win, but then they fell to TFE, and so I still think
Mm-hmm.
you're going to see a lot of high quality soccer, a lot of fun soccer. But we might just see a stratification in the standings, and we're very used to that in these summer leagues. It happens in basically every
Mm-hmm.
one.
Yeah, and this summer for the first time, UPSL women will be hosting a national championship, and it'll be at, kind of fitting, very symbolic, Casey Current Training Facility, and so a club that's leading the way and investment in infrastructure for the women's game. There'll be a $10,000 prize, which, I mean, it's not nothing, man. I mean,
That's
Matt,
pretty wild. Pretty
it's, well,
wild.
I mean, well, and there should be. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
when you're making it a league that's wanting national profile, and on the men's side they have a lot else going on.
If
That's good to get a reward for the teams that invest. A lot of upcoming games for people who want to watch. UPSL women games, as far as anything that happened last year, they were all on YouTube, and so look for these clubs. Obviously, we talk about the ones we know are streaming, like Granite City, Laura, Aurora 2, as far as it was last year. We'll see. I'm assuming Rochester FC women, given their setup. And so we'll continue to shout those out as we see them. Obviously, Superior City FC also. And so, yeah, Vlora. But yeah, check out the UPSL website. There's games coming up from wherever you are, whatever part of the suburbs, whatever part of the state. But yeah, Matt, let's take a second and shout out our sponsors and partners for this summer.
Let's do it. The Pentz Homes team continues to support our work. They've supported us forever. They have done so much to help us resource all of our coverage when we're doing road trips to Sioux Falls, when we're doing road trips to Madison next week for the W League game down there, when we drove down to Rochester. All of that when we fly, when we train, whatever it is, all of that stuff is thanks to folks like Pentz Homes who have supported us forever. If you are buying and selling, that's the most obvious use. But even if you need to do a renovation, you need a rehab, even if you're helping someone move not in Minnesota, they can refer you. They are just so easy to work with. Our parents just use them, and our parents were our kooky cartoon characters of Minnesota parents, and they absolutely they loved working with Nate and Lydia. They said we had so many questions, they made it so easy. They are so easy to work with. They're so fantastic. Use them wherever you are. Bar their own. If folks have not been there yet, you have to go check it out. It's over on Franklin. It's actually pretty close to Augsburg, where some of these December League games are happening. Swing by. They just do such a great job elevating the women's game. There's a reason they get so much attention. They do such a fantastic job of platforming these teams and players. So really can't thank them enough. And then Blackheart of St. Paul, Mark works there. We are hanging out there all the time. Anytime you see me in there, if you come up and you subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Insta, chances are I'm getting your drink for you. So huge shout
Mhm.
out to Black Heart of St. Paul. If you are watching this show, you can get a $25 Black Heart gift card. Just share on social and
Mhm.
tag us, share the show,
Mhm.
and you'll be entered to win. And guess what? There might not be that many people who share. So if you share, you're probably gonna win. Get nuts.
Snag it, baby. They don't expire. I love it.
Also, also I
Yeah.
triple checked. Campbellsville is where Sangmin Cha came from.
I
So
did see.
there
Yeah,
you
yeah,
go.
yeah. Good call. No, what a fun player. I love the random. Yeah, that's we get players from all levels, and it'll come up in the next couple sections too. Let's talk WPSL rebrand. North Lakes Conference semicolon Land of Lakes Division. So it was I love the different names. The UPSL is the most fun, but this is kind of becoming more fun. I love North Lakes Conference. I think it's other like Michigan and Illinois people maybe in Land O'Lakes division. So, but Sioux Falls City departed this group. It was the Northern Conference previously. So we're back into kind of the parity at the top in terms of Salvo and Minnesota Thunder in the past couple years. Matt, there was only a little bit of action in the early weeks for this
Yep.
actually just one game, right? So
Yep.
St. Croix beat Joy Athletic 4-3. Good game. Two teams that were just in the middle of the conference or the division last summer. What were your takeaways from that? Because by the way, people, highlights on Equal Time, the only place you can see all those goals.
Yeah, the tease is over. St. Croix broadcasted this game. Oh man, did they put some time and energy into this thing? They had a broadcast team, they had a bit of a pregame show, they did a bit of a postgame show,
Mm,
including an interview with, I believe, with Tatum Treadle, who's a St. Thomas
mm,
player who had a couple goals in that one. But the camera work was good, the quality was good. They had multiple broadcasters. I every like it was legitimately good. Props to them. It takes a lot of work to try and go from having just to have any stream at all. We don't always get, let alone to make an investment. So
mm,
huge shout out to St. Croix. Like
mm,
very impressive stuff. In general, the game was pretty wild, as you can expect from 4-3. So actually some pretty high quality finishes, like
mm,
some good touches and goals. A lot of them did come from like a player either making a move and then there was sort of no recovery defense, so kind of peak early summer season stuff. But to be honest with you, every one of the actual finishes or setups either had some quality in the build up or some quality in the finishing touch. It was legitimately fun. I mean, there's some players on these rosters that you would recognize if you're an Equal Time fan. A lot of folks from, like we mentioned, the Mankato's of the world, St. Thomas, I can't remember all of them,
mm,
but it was fun to see it early on, because if if you're not going to see like the most insanely disciplined defense, at least you're going to get goals out of it. Like I think summer we go in just wanting either something fun out of it or high quality soccer or both, but it's like if you can get just some fun and some scoring, these players were out there putting on a show, so it was fun.
Nice. We love to see it, and we do love the teams with different missions. Always, I just love to shout out Joy Athletic because they are a team with a mission. They're just trying to bring access to the game, and they do a lot of very accessible, whether it be free or community-based programming. So Joy Athletic, we love it. We love what you do, and love that you have this level of your programming that lets kids dream to get to play at this level,
Yeah.
maybe be future pros. We love it. And by the way, I saw this week, so shout out the Minnesota Dutch Lions. They put out a call if players still want to play anywhere, and they said there's housing included. I mean, we'll throw it out. I mean,
I
lots of
love it.
teams put it out there. I mean, I brought it up because most people are probably on their teams, and so if any player or coach or parent is watching this and they think we get lots of good stories about someone just DMing someone, so
Yeah.
hey man, the Minnesota Dutch Lions threw it out. I just wanted to
And
put that out there.
I have, over the course of the years, because they've rebranded, but that
Uh,
team has existed for a long time.
yeah,
um and they've always
formerly
had,
Rochester United.
yeah, they've
Hmm.
always had really passionate folks who help pull that team together. I've met multiple of them.
Hmm.
Rochester's sort of a cool little town. Minnesota's beautiful in the summer. I mean, if you're a
Hmm.
player that just like all of a sudden
Check it out.
realizes, hey, I want some team reps. Like you could do a lot worse than just like hanging out in Rochester for the summer.
You might be living at a doctor's house, bro, on the
Yeah.
lake or something. We don't know. Yeah, Olmsted County. But yeah, shout out to the WPSL. In terms of the summer leagues, they are kind of the class in terms of how much they cover their own league on their website. So you're able to get written recaps, power rankings, just some really good basic engagement in terms of trying to follow the league. So they do central region specific stuff like on their Insta for people who want to follow WPSL teams. It's definitely in terms of the leagues. I'm comfortable saying they've done the most in terms of making their own internal coverage. They have someone last year. They had someone doing Insta based,
Yep.
video content, and so yeah, we'll see the rankings as they are right now. I love a power ranking, top 25 national. Salvo is number 3 after being great last year. Sioux Falls City, who knows where they would have been because they made the run last year.
Yep.
Minnesota Thunder number 15, and so as it's been in the past few years, and use this as bulletin board material. Mankato and all the and St. Croix and Joy and everyone else. If I didn't say it, it's even more so. But use it because that's what you'd write on paper. You'd expect that Salvo and Minnesota Thunder will be up top, but I love to see when the other teams challenge. And so upcoming games in WPSL, Matt, St. Croix hosting Salvo next week. Mankato hosts Salvo Friday of next week. Minnesota Dutch Lions versus Joy on Friday. And then Minnesota Bliss, a combined team we've talked about. They play in Maple Grove. They are playing Manitou next Friday. And then on Sunday, June 1st, huge games in terms of Minnesota Thunder versus Salvo, 1 p.m. That's at the Star Dome, baby. Academy of Holy Angels Star Dome. It definitely doesn't sound like George Lucas named that place. Academy of Holy Angels, if you
I
didn't know
like
the
it.
school. And then Mankato hosts Minnesota Dutch Lions, Minnesota Bliss versus Joy. But either way, like we always say, you can find a WPSL team close to you, wherever you're at in the state, unless you're in North Dakota, in which case you got to go down to
Apologies.
sorry, the Dakota Fusion taking a break. But yeah, Matt, let's kick it into W League.
Yeah, we have this one. There's some changes in the conference, right? But we've had a couple games early on. How have things
Mhm.
looked so far in terms of early results?
Yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, so we've seen Aurora scrimmaging at home. I saw Sioux Falls City scrimmage as well. We'll get into that. So always hard to know exactly what people have at this early stage. So it's hard to judge if it's a complete look at what the squad will bring. But Rochester FC, one of the squads we follow closely, they beat RKC 2-0. Is something you'd expect. I mean, because Rochester keeps being more and more competitive. RKC was not especially competitive last year.
Mm-hmm.
So good to see from Rochester early on. And then Riverlight FC beating the now combined Chicago City Dutch Lions 2-0. Also, not especially surprising, but is a big deal because in terms of people making the playoffs, you would so far Minnesota Aurora has not lost a regular season game. So teams like Riverlight, teams like Chicago City Dutch Lions, and Rochester and Sioux Falls City, quite frankly, they're all the teams that you would expect to compete to try to make the postseason.
Yeah. And I can't remember. We probably mentioned it on the previous show, but we can just repeat it too. I realized I could have said it up top. Bavarian is no longer in the division. And then, as Mark
Mm-hmm.
said, the Chicago Dutch Lions and Chicago City combined. So that's a single team in
Mm-hmm.
sort of Chicago proper, along with Riverlight, which is just west in Aurora, Illinois. And then Sioux Falls City comes in. So the division actually is decently different, but
Mm-hmm.
still you still expect a lot of the same powers. I personally think that 2-0 result from Riverlight might signal a little bit of a step down. That game was 1-0 through the vast majority I was watching through. Um, I think if Riverlight was honest, or if they were on here and had some truth serum, I think they would want to be winning a little bit bigger than that against that combined squad. But
Mm-hmm.
still, a win is a win. And same for Rochester. I think maybe they would want to be hitting a little bit harder than that. But they have some good returners. They have some sort of equal time favorites and equal time known names. Emma Nack in goal. She's a very high quality keeper. You got other folks from the Dakota D1s. You have a pretty decent mix, but they did lose some of their star power up top. Ada Kardovic was just absolutely unbelievable for them last year, and they helped her launch into sort of her pro ambition. So she's not there. So just worth watching, because in these summer leagues, when you lose that star power, and we'll talk about that with Aurora, it's a lot of pressure to keep restocking. A lot of pressure. And
Mm-hmm.
so Mark, you mentioned the Sioux Falls City. They've sort of each year they've had those scrimmages against Sioux City, which is just south
Mm-hmm.
of them on the Iowa
Mm-hmm.
border. I know there was a pretty wild goal that you shared, but also just in general, what did you see out of that scrimmage?
Well, the goal I shared was from last year, because and I spent a long time looking this goal up, and I'll share the context of this. But it was just one of my favorites. But no, they played Sioux City Soul, who they played like a scrimmage season last year.
Yep,
To be in, they're not in our WPSL division,
yep,
which is interesting because they could be, but they're down with more like the
yep,
Nebraska and Iowa and things like that.
yep.
But yeah, Sioux Falls City looking good early. But no, what I in looking at their roster, I was just excited to see one of the players I interviewed last year, and I just really wanted to talk to her, but and her English was not the best, and so credit to her, she agreed to still to do the
Yep.
interview. She's Japanese, and I just really wanted to talk to her. It was Yui Fuji. She had
She's fun.
scored. Yeah, so when I went to Sioux Falls City last year, and I've gone every year they've been playing, and the week previous she had scored a goal where, and I think it probably was Travis Galeppo, I don't know, who did a close up video. It could have been Joel maybe or something,
I'm sure it
who
was
was doing.
Travis. I'm
It
sure it
was
was Travis.
goal line video, and it's on their Instagram still. I just had to do a lot of digging. I scrubbed through two full games to try to find the goal itself, and I couldn't, but I found the video. Anyway, it's that she plays the ball in off the keeper, it bounces off her, and she sees the ball come into her space, and she goes from nothing to full smile as the ball comes off her chest, and then she scores, and it's just the most pure joy. Very talented goal, but
Yeah.
the process itself and the actual video
Yeah.
was miraculous, and so
Well,
that's part of the reason I had to talk to her, even though she was very good on the day, but that
yeah.
it was the week previous.
And they are actually playing tonight. They're playing Riverlight, and so they're playing
Yes.
in 40 minutes. That's
Yep.
going to be a huge, huge signal about how the
Hmm.
table looks in the W League Heartland Division, because
Hmm.
both of those theoretically should be in the upper half of the table in this conference. And
Hmm.
so that's a huge, huge scouting report game for the rest of the division, 100%. And as you said, man, some familiar names on this Sioux Falls City team. The Haley
Hmm.
Christensen, who I just have such a soft spot for. She can just absolutely rip. Mo Malone, who you talked to on the show earlier, Fisher in goal, Van Meter in, Muhlenmeister,
Hmm.
Lehman. I mean, all of these players that were so
A lot of
familiar.
returners, yeah, like
I think
Lulu
Corshing
Moreno, yeah, Lulu Moreno.
Corshing is new. I think she traditionally had played for Mankato, and she's a Mankato, Minnesota State Mankato player. That's a
Hmm.
big get for them. But otherwise, Thomas, all these
Hmm.
returning hitters on
Yeah,
there.
they have a lot of core, all the Dakota area. I mean, at all levels, and yeah. I mean, we when we've talked earlier this spring, we had Joe DeMay on, who's the sporting director and coach there, and they both really scrub the Dakota area for at all levels, and also really invest. I mean, and they posted. I mean, they love to say how they're doing this, like that he's out scouting East Coast, West Coast, and so they get a couple people like that every year, and so yeah, they got someone from NC State that I'm blanking, and I had a note of,
Yep,
but yeah, it's every year a little bit better on paper in terms of what you see in pedigree, but also
yep,
the core, and yeah, they keep building. So really fun to see how they match up with Aurora and Rochester after battling to beat. Don't forget, really good teams in Salvo and Minnesota Thunder, some of the best in our area,
yep,
and they came out on top last year.
yep. It means a lot. It means a lot. I mean, you have, like you said, Salvo and Thunder. They don't always have like the streams up or the posts about the roster or the posts about games, but they're stacked. I mean, both teams are
Mhm.
absolutely stacked. And so for Sioux Falls to come out on top really does say a lot about just the intentionality of building out a system, having continuity, all of that
Mhm.
stuff. In terms of the W League 2, I know you have been absolutely loving this shit with like Jen Lyric as the head coach has just been
Mhm.
going all out on her coach fits. What
Mhm.
else has stood out other than Jen just absolutely going for it as a head coach for them this preseason?
Yeah, we love to see it because Jen in the previous time was just only in team gear,
Yeah.
because the assistant coaches don't flare out like that, and so I just never seen her express herself that way, and so
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
it's fun for me to see. Yeah, waiting for celebrations. I think she even mentioned that in terms of, and maybe players. I don't know if they haven't planned it, but like there wasn't
Right.
celebrations, right?
Not
No,
really.
I mean, because the standard is very choreographed, for
Uh-huh.
this team. But yeah, it's kind of what you'd expect in the scrimmages. I mean, they played Indy 11 0-0. It looked like a 0-0 for sure. The next week they played Kansas City Current reserves. This last Sunday got a 2-0 result. Yeah, it did look better. It looked like, there were more players in. They connected a bit better. High level team to play, and we asked Jen Lyric, the head coach, about what it means to have these type of games with fans, because they've had scrimmages every year. They played Sioux City, they played Savo. It's always a really good opponent, but like this was prepping players with the stadium, and she seemed to take that very seriously, that it really did matter. For anyone who watched the very first Aurora game, they weren't that good. It was 0-0, and they looked
Yeah.
nervous, and they've all admitted it, like they were nervous. So
Yep, yep.
yeah, really cool to have the high level opponents. And we'll do a lot of Aurora talk, as we go through the year. But yeah, curious to see. I mean, there's not some huge difference in like the pedigree of players they have. There are a few more Gophers. They similarly have high level, players. But yeah, it remains to be seen, what the
Yeah.
level is compared to other years.
Yeah, I think for Aurora it'll be curious to see where. And the other thing head coach Jen Lyric signaled is it's not like you set a starting lineup in a rotation for game 1 and just put it in amber and never look at it again. I think you are going
Mhm.
to see things progress. So as much as we love talking about sort of who will the starters be on opening night
Mhm.
tomorrow night, who will be in the rotation, I think she is someone that really is sort of like an incredibly like thoughtful intentional coach where
Mhm.
she I think she will adjust the rotation as it goes. If I had to guess right now, I don't know who we're going to see start in net, but that will be a big decision. I think the back
Mhm.
line we sort of know it likely would be Annie Williams, Elizabeth Overberg, Boone, and then Zbilic across the back four. Although I love Eli Rapid outside back, I'm sure she'll get a lot of
Mhm.
time there too. They're kind of running out a 4-2-3-1, so I would expect Evelyn Calhoun and Summer Diamond as those two holders. I think you'll see Mariah Wynn and Sage Wimes at the outside mids, and then almost definitely Natalie
Mhm.
Tavana at the 9 as the striker, and Kat Rapp at the 10. Jen Lyric talked
Mhm.
about Nat and Kat as sort of the dual like central attackers up there.
Mhm.
But I mean, there's going to be some rotation. Like Cooney Harai has looked good. Ava Westland has had moments. You've seen a lot of different players get chances, so I wouldn't be surprised if you see a ton of rotation. Like I'm sure they'll
Mhm.
use all 7 subs most of the time. But I'm curious too. Even if we go south to Rochester, how are you thinking about
By the way,
them?
no, Matt. But by the way, we're gonna go through that. Matt picked the entire lineup, so we're absolutely gonna measure, clip that, and see how you picked the
I
11.
I didn't pick the keeper because I don't know, but who knows.
We'll see.
The other
If you get 10 for 10, what do I have to do if it was 10 for 10 on what you just said?
uh who cares?
Watchers,
Yeah,
Patreons.
yeah. Put in the comments. Put in the comments. Mom, when you watch this, tell
Do
Mark
I
what
have
he
to
has to do.
tattoo a 10 on my leg? Oh my God.
Sure. There. Yeah. Let's head down Highway 52 to Rochester FC,
Mm.
who we love covering too. What stands out, even just from the roster scrub, or what you've seen from them? What you've seen from the makeup of the squad this year? We talked a little bit earlier, but what have you seen in terms of the change from last year to this year?
Yeah, shout out to Rochester FC. I got the quarter right back there. Honestly, I mean, it's a unique one. It's different in terms, like when we talk about Sioux Falls City having their core of local folks. Aurora they have a core of returners who aren't, necessarily all local, but to become returners. Rochester, it's always a really interesting mix. It's evolving a lot. They do have people returning for sure. It's not quite as Minnesotan. It is regional. There's a lot of people from Iowa colleges, community colleges, D2 and NAIA all throughout, like, Illinois and the Midwest. But a couple people, just to mention, because they're people we like to kind of pay attention or root for. Obviously, someone we had on before, Emma Knack, played at South Dakota State, transferred to Grand Canyon. Actually, one of the few. They don't have a tremendous amount of D1 players on Rochester FC, more of a mix. She's one of the few going to the WAC, playing Grand Canyon. Someone I want to mention who I noticed, and it seems like kind of a ringer that I love, is Juanita Parra Acosta. Played at two small colleges and then at Charlotte. So played D1 at the end of her college career, and then just played on 3 or 4 teams in Colombia and Central America, and is now on Rochester FC. So love to see stories like that. And then similarly, another type of story we like to see, Mariana Lopez Brito, who Iowa Western Community College, I feel like I've seen before. I think that's
they're a big one.
It's a good stepping stone for people, I feel like, from seeing past rosters.
Yeah.
But she played for Portugal U15 and U18s, no slouch about that. So we love seeing how these teams are able to pull in talent with stories like that. So it could be a good potential interview.
And that type of international chops is so fun to see from these players. They have multiple like that. Putri Sazali, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing it. From Singapore. Ana Ricarte Pacheco did get announced earlier this winter, but I think maybe she's over in Spain still. We'll have to check in with Ana. But she has some cool international roots. Jada Brown, they have such a fun player mix. So excited to see them again this summer. And then I think, we don't have to go through and try and pick how the standings will be unless you want to. If you want to try and pick, you have where to expect them to finish. What do you think?
Oh, Rochester. I think this is I want to make positive bulletin board material for them, and then motivational ones for everyone below. Right. But I would pick that their goal should be to finish third behind Aurora and Sioux Falls City.
Yeah.
I just think they've steadily, built their base, and they have, some returning players, and they continue to I think find their way. And so they weren't, it wasn't like they were especially close, but you just don't know in the middle. So yeah, I think that should be their goal. And I think for Sioux Falls City, I mean, if I were them, I think their goal should be to finish second. And that's bullets. Oops, I accidentally did bulletin board for them too. Yeah. But I mean, Aurora's held the crown, so I mean, and Aurora, you're expected to win, so there's bulletin board for you. I'm forcing it.
I think the 2 center backs and the 2 holding mids for Aurora are going to make them incredibly hard to beat, and so I think they're going to have a high floor. I could see, Sioux Falls and Riverlight both should be really strong. On paper right now, if you had to talk about it, you probably would say for now Aurora deserves the respect to have the top spot on paper. I would probably view Sioux Falls and Riverlight on paper as sort of battling for that 2 and 3, and then probably Rochester and Chicago battling for sort of 4-5, with RKC maybe the on paper, most likely to fall toward the bottom. But I think you're going to see some of these games go pretty tough. I mean, Rochester has pushed Aurora in the past. I would not be surprised if every single one of these teams is able to get some result over someone, quote unquote, above them on paper. Because we also don't fully know if all these rosters are in yet. So I might be overshooting some of these early results.
Yeah, it is a bit difficult. It still varies very much how much we're able to see in terms of we scroll through Instagrams, we try to look on league websites. It varies a lot. And so I will say for people, we always like to show appreciation when leagues have the work put in and give us a resource. So for example, in WPSL so far, there's nothing in terms of being able to look at stats, in terms of player stats. We'll see, maybe that changes as it gets going. UPSL, they had goal leaders, and so that was that's nice, but that was all it is on their main page, scrolling goal leaders. USLW League for the first year,
time
props
for the first time.
staff, and I hope I hope
Yes.
someone's watching this can forward that, and we'll try to send you a message. Thank you very much. It looks as if there will be in-depth stats in the W League in terms of basically what you expect in D1 college soccer. D2 is, everything from goals, assists, minutes, keeper stats, just the basic of what you expect. It's very good for us to have stuff like that. It
Yep.
makes it way easier to come up with things to cover when we have so many teams. So thank you to the USLW League. And also, by the way, it's, when you're branding yourself in the way they are, like, you should have stats. And same with the other leagues,
Yep.
pre-professional. It helps us hype up players. So shout out to the
Yep.
league for doing that.
And
Yeah.
just an acknowledgement from we got Eric Christensen in the comments reminding us, and I think we mentioned earlier, 30 minutes till kickoff in Aurora, Illinois. Sioux Falls City is at Riverlight, which is a fun twist. So if you're not tuning into a different game, that's not a bad one to throw on just to sort of have in the
Sports
back.
Engine. Yeah.
Yep. All the links to their socials for sure.
Yep. But yeah, it's I think technically an NBC thing, but Sports Engine.
Yep.
That was one of the better streams we had this last summer. So
Yep.
yeah,
And
that's a good game.
and if you for some reason are not someone who's following Sioux Falls City, a random other Minnesota angle for you is that Maya Nugent, who's a young star incoming player for the Gophers, is once again playing for Riverlight, and then a different Chicago tie-in for you all, the hardcore equal time fans. Kat Barthelt once again is playing for the newly combined Chicago squad. Played for the Chicago Dutch Lions last year, I believe. I saw her in the lineup. So a lot of random little footholds for you to find.
Bemidji State.
Yep.
Bemidji State forward.
Yep.
Yeah. So for the games in the W League, it really is kicking off this weekend. So tonight, we have Riverlight Sioux Falls, we mentioned. Tomorrow, Aurora opens at home versus Rochester FC. Amazing Minnesota rivalry game. We still haven't named it. We're not forcing it. We're waiting for did we?
Right.
I don't think so.
Yeah, is it? I mean, just
Ravon Tillett has to name it. I mean,
right.
I think. Yeah, we'll see. But Dutch Lions hosting Sioux Falls the following day on Friday, and then this weekend some more games. Check out Sports Engine, check out W League website to see those games. But yeah, we're looking forward to, for example, next Thursday Rochester FC hosts Sioux Falls. So for both of those teams, that's where they have to lay it down of where they're going to be in the pecking order. So yeah, awesome to see all these leagues kicking off, Matt.
Yep, love it. We got some, Minnesotans continue to be in the youth national team camps. Just a shout out to Maddie Deline, called in for the U23. She's been crushing it for the Reign as well. Izzy Engel got called in. We actually had a Minnesotan called in to the French youth national teams, and we're going to make sure we have her on as well. I think the U17, so a little bit younger. But Minnesota just continuing to show out. So fun. We got, multiple players in the NWSL. We got multiple connections into the USL Super League, even the Northern League up in Northern Super League up in Canada. So follow us for summer stuff. Message us, tag us, reply anything you want to suggest or ask us we should be doing more of. Let us know, and we're happy to try and make it happen.
Yeah, or if there's a player we're missing, dude, send us a message, because it's the European leagues get tough to find real details. So if we're missing someone.
The show with Bridget, I already know the players I missed. I mismentioned Ana Ricardo Pacheco. I mismentioning Maya Hansen. There's even more than that I'm forgetting, but I'm mismentioning them. There's more. There's for sure more.
Yeah. That's a good problem for us to have. Thank you guys. We will be back with some more content at multiple times this week. So thank you very much. We'll see you soon.